All right, welcome to episode 29 of Life is Horror. This will be the Universal Monsters episode because there are 29 Universal Monster movies in the collections that I bought. I bought the DVD collections for all six of the monsters: the Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein, Invisible Man, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and the Mummy. Six of them, all their movies together makes 29 movies. So episode 29 will be the Universal Monsters episode. So I'll be doing a Universal Monsters quiz. I'll be ranking all 29 movies and be reviewing some 2023 movies, such as The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, Fear, and also The Blackening. Let's jump into, I guess, the reviews. We'll do the reviews first, and then we'll do the quiz after that, and then we'll jump into Universal Monsters ranking. How many of you have even watched these Universal Monster movies? Not many people have, but yeah, I just saw all of them for the first time finally in October, so that was a challenge. Not all of them are good. I wish they were better. They're just a sign of the times. They're very similar to each other. It's hard to differentiate a lot of them. They all have the same story, and yeah, I'll get into it later. But yeah, they're all the same movie. So let's get into these reviews. And let's talk about number one. The first movie, The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. This, I believe, just dropped on Shudder. And this one is directed by Bomani J. Story. And the plot synopsis is Vicaria. So Vicaria is a brilliant teenager who believes death is a disease that can be cured. After the brutal and sudden murder of her brother, she embarks on a dangerous journey to bring him back to life. So yeah, this is a Frankenstein movie. So that's appropriate, seeing as how I'm gonna be talking about all the Frankenstein movies later. I did not do that on purpose, actually, so that's funny. So yeah, how appropriate. So this is Frankenstein in the Hood, basically, and I gave this a 3 out of 5. I thought it was all right. But what it is basically, it's like I said, it's Frankenstein in the Hood. It's a modern take on that story, and the Victor Frankenstein is Vicarious. I think her name is supposed to sound like the female version of Victor. It's Vicaria instead of Victor, and she's a black high school girl who's very smart, and she wants to cure death because I think her mom died, and then her brother ends up dying. She quickly is very successful in her experiments. She is able to resurrect her dead brother very quickly into the movie. Um, her brother was a gangster who's working for this drug dealer, and then after he's resurrected, she quickly loses track of him. He leaves the place, and she's like, oh shit, where is he? He's out causing mayhem. And he goes on a killing spree because society treats him like a monster. And if she had done a better job on his face, maybe it would have turned out well. She makes him look like a monster, and he looks worse than Leatherface in this. He looks terrible. And this movie is really dark, making it very hard dark from a cinematography standpoint. I thought it was very hard to see everything in frame from time to time. It's hard to see the action, and the editing could be a bit choppy at times. And the lead actress does a wonderful job, and they do a good job making you like the family in this. The little girl did a creepy laugh too many times in one scene, and why was she weird all of a sudden? I wasn't too crazy about that character. The second act mainly consists of scenes where like Vicaria is like working for a drug dealer while her zombie brother is just running amok. And the ending could have been a downer, but they decided to lighten things up and have everyone like resurrected back to normal. I don't care for that kind of ending. I say with the implication that things would have gone smoothly this time around. What? I saw this movie a couple months ago. I'm just going off of my notes here. The music had a lot of jump scare stingers. I don't care for that stuff. The white T-shirt was a bitch. But I do think Vicaria was rude in that scene. Um, she was acting like a real know-it-all. She kept interrupting her teachers. Like, yeah, we get it. This character's smart. She knows probably just as much or more than the teacher. But to have her like interrupting the teacher as much as she did, it made me not like her character that much in that scene. I'm like, all right, you're acting like a bitch. So the fact that the teacher is acting like a bitch back to you, like it seems justified. Um, yeah, like just raise your hand. She never raises her hand to be like, I know the answer. She just blurts everything out. Like, I know everything. I know more than you, lady. So I didn't like that about the character. It moves at a nice pace, but also in the end, it's kind of like predictable because it's a story we've seen plenty of times. It's the Frankenstein story. You know more than likely how this is going to wrap up. It's the same story, but in a different environment with a different social commentary behind it. Like I said, it's all right. I enjoy this movie more than the original Frankenstein. That's for sure. This moves much faster than the original Frankenstein. So yeah, the black girl and her monster, it's all right, but it's been here, done that, just a different environment. All right, Fear. This is a movie that a lot of people hate. This movie actually got a theatrical release back in January, and I did not go see it. Thankfully, I'm glad I didn't waste money and going to the theater for this. This is basically like It meets The Shining, set during the pandemic. This is a pandemic movie. What's the plot synopsis here? Hold on, my internet's acting up. I finally pulled up Letterbox on my computer instead of looking at my phone. I used to read my notes off my phone, so I'm always like looking down to the left or something. And now I have Letterbox on the website here. I'm using the website now and not my app anymore. So I don't have to keep looking down. I can look like almost at the webcam, but not quite. I tried pulling up the plot synopsis and it gave me. All right, here it is. There's some ads or something. All right, so a group of friends gather for a much needed weekend getaway at a remote and historic hotel. Celebration turns into terror as one by one each guest faces their own worst fear. Like I said, kind of like Pennywise, how he feeds off of your fear. He shows you the things that creep you out the most. So, and the whole movie is at like a big like hotel, isolated hotel. So it's like It meets The Shining during the pandemic. Uh, with a don't fear the virus and what the news tells you message. That's the message I got from this movie. It felt very much like this movie was telling you don't believe what the news is telling you about the virus and the pandemic. It's not as crazy as they tell you. That's very much what it felt like they were telling me. Um, which seems to be the huge reason why this movie is disliked. And, I kind of give it kudos for doing that. Like, good for you, because no one else is making a movie like this with that message. No one has the balls to say something like that, because then you get hated like this movie. But it is generic. It's poorly written. It's not scary at all. It has god awful characters. I didn't care for anybody in this. Um, but yeah, I feel like the biggest reason, besides it being kind of a generic movie, the reason why this movie is so lowly rated, so hated, is because of the commentary here. It seems like an anti-virus movie, like an anti-vax movie. That's what it feels like. But maybe I'm reading it wrong. Maybe that wasn't the message at all. And we're all just misinterpreting this. Like the director of Brain Damage, Henenlotter, says that movie is not an anti-drug movie, but when you watch it, it certainly feels like it. But maybe that's not what they were going for here. Uh, yeah, the movie is very much COVID inspired. Like they talk about COVID in the movie. Characters are wearing face masks. There's a character will cough and then they'll look at that person like, "Oh shit, get away from me. Did you take a test? Are you sure you're COVID free?" It's beating you over the head with that shit. So if you don't want to be reminded of the real world, and you don't want to, if you watch these movies for escapism, this movie's not going to make you escape the real world. It's going to remind you of what's going on nowadays. I mean, they talk about the COVID test, they talk about quarantining. Everyone's getting paranoid when people cough. It's very much a COVID movie. Um, you got a successful author doing research for his next book as the main character who's afraid of commitment, and his secretly pregnant girlfriend who's religious and asthmatic. Um, I forget who plays her. I think isn't the chick from Happy Death Day in this? I think she is. And there's a rapper in this, I believe, Ty West or someone. I think there's a rapper in this. The dialogue at times is laughable, and the acting is very meh from some and bad from others. So the acting's very uneven. Some people are terrible, some are okay. Why is there a title card with two separate titles in this at the beginning and the end? You get two different titles. And one of the actors is a rapper, so that's the first red flag. You get some rap music. The open credits score was actually pretty good, but outside of that, not the rest of it didn't really stand out to me. How the British agent killed himself was kind of brutal. Every other kill was super weak, and two of them were the same. The witch, this has like a witch, like a CGI ghost witch with like this black viscous fluid swirling around. It looked awful. It looked really dumb. It was like watching Venom, just like the way she looked. It's not a good movie. I gave this 1.5 out of 5. It is not a good movie. I agree with everyone. I don't hate it for the same reasons as everyone, but I agree this movie is not good. So avoid it like the Black Plague. It's terrible. The Blackening. So this is a like parody slasher, kind of like Scream, has some Scream and Saw vibes. Uh, this premiered last September 2022, but it finally got a wide release in the summer. And it's about a group of black friends reunite for a Juneteenth weekend getaway, only to find themselves trapped in a remote cabin with a twisted killer. This is directed by Tim Story, who's directed a lot of comedies. And this is a hilarious comedy slasher set on Juneteenth with obvious Saw and Scream influences, with a terrific cast of fun, likable characters you actually want to see live. And the killer reveal was a little predictable to me, but the motive was not. And I like that. I like that the motive was not what I was expecting going into this. I went into this thinking this was going to be kind of like a heavy-handed film, a very like, I don't know, anti-white person. I thought they were just gonna make fun of white people the whole time. It wasn't that at all. And I thought the killers and this, like when you go into this, you expect this to be like there's a redneck character who's killing these black people because they're black, and that's gonna be the reason. But no, there's a different motivation for the killer in this. I like that. The humor had me laughing a good amount. I thought it was really funny. Apparently, black people can read each other's minds in this. I thought that was a weird gimmick, but it has a great payoff at the end. So I just thought that was interesting and weird that the characters were seemingly reading each other's minds. And this movie acts like that's like a thing between black people, that they can read each other's minds. But in this movie, they literally are. That's like the one supernatural element of the film, the mind reading. There's no gore. It's a low body count, so don't expect that. Uh, and the tone of this movie, I don't think would work with gory kills, though, because it's so silly. But maybe they could have shown some of the killers get killed on camera. You got multiple killers in this movie running around with bow and arrows. And the air vent in one scene, there's a scene where they're like all hiding in an air vent and they can all fit side by side. And this thing, like, it's a cabin in the woods. How big are these air vents that 3 grown adults can lay inside the air vents side by side? That was ridiculous. Like, how huge. Um, the signal blocker device is a better explanation for why the cell phones don't work than conveniently just not having a signal because it's the woods. I'm kind of tired of that in these modern day horror films where you always have to like have a character as soon as they arrive wherever. You have to have that one character that pulls out their phone and they look at it and they're like, "Oh no, there's no service here because it's the woods." Like I'm sick of that. It's so dumb. Like I don't care how deep in the woods you are. I feel like that's a thing of the past. I feel like unless you're at Camp Nobi Bosco, you're gonna have a cell phone service. You know, you're gonna have a signal. I went to the Camp Crystal Lake location recently, and they actually had no service out there in the woods. So I guess it's sort of believable, but I'm sick of seeing it. But yeah, in this one, the killers have a cell phone device that like blocks the signal. So that's a better explanation. They do it in You're Next, and they do it in this one. It's a better explanation. It doesn't feel as forced. So yeah, this is just a really funny, goofy slasher that I recommend. I like the characters. I thought the dialogue was very well written, very funny. It doesn't get too like heavy-handed, too political. It's not offensive to me. I enjoyed it. So I gave this a 4 out of 5. This is top 10 worthy of the year for me. I really enjoyed it. I went in with semi low expectations and came out very surprised at how much I enjoyed it. So big recommendation from me. I really recommend you check this out. I think it's on Prime. You can rent it for a few bucks. Definitely do so if you haven't seen it already. So those are the three movies. Now I guess we can jump into the quiz. Um, the Universal Monsters quiz, 20 questions. I'm curious how many of these I will even know. I just watched these movies less than a month ago, and I'm sure I forgot so much already. So, yeah, 20 questions for the Universal Monsters. Most of you probably haven't even seen them, so you'll just skip right past this. But for those of you who have seen the Universal Monster movies, stick around. So, 20 questions. Let's see how many you get right. Let me know in the comments below how many you got right. So, question 1. Which Universal Monsters performer's real name was William Henry Pratt? I don't even know that one. Question number 2. Which comedy actors made a number of Meat movies with the Universal Monsters? That one's obvious. Question 3. Where is Creature from the Black Lagoon set? Where is that movie set? Question 4. Which Universal Monster movie features the line, "Now I know what it feels like to be God"? Question 5. Which Universal Monster movie had started out as a story treatment called Cagliostro? Cagliostro? I don't know. Question 6. What is the name of the 1998 biopic about Frankenstein, director James Whale, starring Ian McKellen as well? So there's a 1998 biopic about Frankenstein. About the director or about Frankenstein? It stars Ian McKellen as the director James Whale. So what's the name of that biopic? I've never seen it. I don't know. Question 7. Which of the reoccurring Universal Monsters actors is the only one to have portrayed all 4 of its major horror characters? Is it Karloff, Lugosi, or Lon Chaney Jr.? I know that one. What is considered to be the first Universal Monster movie? Is it Dracula, Frankenstein, or The Hunchback of Notre Dame? If The Hunchback is a Universal Monster movie, I did not watch it for this, so that will not be in my 29 movie ranking. Question 9. In which part of the UK is the Wolfman set? Is it England, Ireland, Scotland, or Wales? Question 10. The 1944 film The Climax was originally intended to be a sequel to Phantom of the Opera. True or false? Question 11. Which 1920s Universal Monster movie was remade in 1943 in color? Question 12. Who wrote the novella The Invisible Man, which Universal adapted into the classic 1933 film? Question 13. What was the first sequel to The Mummy? What was it called? Was it called The Mummy's Hand, The Mummy's Ghost, or The Mummy's Curse? Question 14. As well as being simply billed as Karloff, which other name was Boris Karloff sometimes known by? Was it Karloff the Uncanny, Karloff the Monster, or Karloff the Colossus? Question 15. Which scene was notoriously cut from Frankenstein only to be finally restored in the 1980s? Question 16. Which Universal Monster movie am I describing? There is a fossil, a boat, a cage, some logs, and a cavern. Question 17. Which musical instrument was Ulrike Clausen renowned for playing in Phantom of the Opera? I didn't watch Phantom of the Opera. That was not a Universal Monster movie. That was not in my collections. There's 29 movies, like I said. Phantom of the Opera was not one of them, so I did not watch that. All right, so question 18. Which Universal Monster said the following line? There are far worse things awaiting man than death. Question 19. What was Bela Lugosi famously buried wearing? What was he famously buried wearing? Bela Lugosi. Question 20. Last question. What is the name of the new franchise of Universal Monster movies that has started with The Mummy 2017, starring Tom Cruise? What is the name of the new franchise? Didn't that franchise die? Like, how many more movies did they make in that franchise after Tom Cruise's Mummy? That movie flopped, so I don't think they made any more. I mean, Lee Winnell remade Invisible Man, but I don't think that's technically a part of that franchise. But whatever. So yeah, there you go. I think I only knew maybe a handful of those. I didn't watch Phantom of the Opera. I never watched Hunchback of Notre Dame, but there's plenty of hunchbacks in the movies I did watch. That's one trope in these Universal Monster movies is there's constantly a hunchback assistant. Every movie ends with a girl getting kidnapped and carried away by the monster. Every movie has a lynch mob with torches. Every movie has essentially the same plot but a different monster. They're all so similar. They're all like period pieces. They're all set back in the day. They're all in like London or England, somewhere in the UK. And they all have like a doofus cop character, and they all have characters not believing the main character. And it's like in every fucking movie, they gotta be like, no, I swear, this is what's happening. And it's always a bunch of doubt and like disbelief. And they have to keep reconvincing everybody of what's happening. And when you watch these movies back to back, that gets so annoying. It's like, oh my God, are we going through this again? Like, how many times does this have to happen? And these movies are all set in the same universe. So it's like all this crazy supernatural shit has happened in the past, but for some reason, these new characters don't believe it. It's like, didn't your mom witness what happened in Frankenstein 1, but in Frankenstein 3, they're like, I don't believe that this is happening? Or in the Wolfman sequels, they're like, I don't believe this is happening. It's like, dude, this has happened like 20 times already. In the Mummy movies, it's like, I don't believe there's a mummy. It's like, Jesus Christ, how many times does this have to happen before everybody's on board and the information gets passed down from generation to generation and everybody believes? It's just so annoying. These movies were really agitating to watch. But thankfully, the average runtime for these Universal Monster movies is like 70 minutes. They are so short, thank God. All right, so let's start at the bottom. Number 29 is Werewolf of London. This was in the Wolfman collection, 1935. So this came out before the Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. And this one I found to be super dull. There's no Lon Chaney Jr. It lacks any style, no atmosphere. The new wolf design, although I guess it's not new, but it was new to me because I watched these in order in the collection. So this was last, but it's actually the first movie. But this design I thought was awful. I hate it. Has like the V hairline. I didn't like the look of the werewolf in this. The camera zooms. The camera zooms in on a map to tell you where they are in the movie instead of just having a word pop up and say, England. They have to like zoom in on a map, and it looks so cheesy. You got a botanist that goes to Tibet to find a flower. You got a woman repeating herself a lot. That's annoying to me. Nothing about this is funny or engaging. I watched this movie on 1.5 speed to get through it. The wolf is killed with a regular bullet, so the silver bullet is not a part of this movie's story at all. So, and he can talk as a werewolf. In the other Wolfman movies, he cannot talk. A good cast is worth repeating, says the end credits. At the end credits, it says a good cast is worth repeating. Fake looking rear projection, lots of dead air, boring dialogue, love triangle I could give a fuck less about. I did not like this at all. Number 28 is The Mummy's Ghost in 1944. Lon Chaney Jr. plays the mummy again. This is 3 movies in a row that open with an old jittery man Looks like he has Parkinson's. He's shaking and he's hiring his like replacement. 3 Mummy movies in a row, they open the same exact way. Could you imagine that in the franchise today? They have the same like opening 5-10 minutes with almost the same like dialogue. It's like, are we doing this again? Jesus Christ, can we do anything different? And Amina panics when she hears the word Egypt. I thought that was really silly because of her like ancestry or something. She like when she hears the word Egypt, she panics and she doesn't know why. She's like, "Oh my god, I just hate the word Egypt." It's so stupid. She's the reincarnation of a princess mummy. The same mummy lore is regurgitated again. These movies back to back. It's kind of like how the Friday the 13th movies would do those recaps. These movies did the same thing in a way, but they would just, but it was like 5 minutes long, and they'd be like, "Here's what happened," in case you didn't see the other movies. It's like, do I have to sit through this again? In the Mummy and all the Mummy movies, he kills people the same way. He just has his one arm, and he strangles them with his one hand, and it's all off camera. As soon as he makes contact, it cuts away. They're dead. Another woman, the same police investigation bullshit. And another woman is kidnapped by the mummy in the third act. Bad dialogue, bad acting. The lady's hair turns white like Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street because of how scared she is. And you get a drawn out chase sequence. Like, how hard is it to catch up to a fucking mummy with a limp? This mummy is so slow, and you got this drawn out chase, and they're like, "Where is it?" Like it's so baffling. Like, they see it run off, and then they start pursuing it, and somehow this mummy carrying a woman with a limp somehow managed to outrun them. How is that possible? And I was surprised by the downbeat ending in this. The mummy walks into a swamp with a girl, which seems to happen more than once in this Universal Monster universe. And she's now looking like a mummy herself. I don't understand that. I don't understand the betrayal of John Carradine's character and why he killed him. And that happens a lot. That's another thing. In all these movies, there is always betrayal. Someone will betray someone seemingly out of thin air. Like there were buddies before that, and all of a sudden it's like, fuck you, I'm betraying you, now you're dead. It's like, where did this come from? Every single one of these movies had betrayal, a woman being kidnapped, carried away unconscious, a woman fainting, sometimes more than once. And then the Costello movies made fun of that, I think, where like the guys would start fainting, like everyone's fainting, everyone's being kidnapped by the monsters, carried away to some location, a woman in distress needing saved by some man, and then abrupt endings, like as soon as the monster gets killed, like as soon as they pull the trigger, it's like the end will pop up on the screen. As soon as they walk into the quicksand, as soon as their head is out of frame and you can't see them no more, the end. These movies ended so abruptly. There's no like moment to breathe and like see what effect this all had on the other characters. It's like, nope, the monster's dead, the end, it's over, leave the theater. Like, it's ridiculous. And some of these movies, they all have like the same music or no music at all. So yeah, 28, The Mummy's Ghost. Oh shit, I just realized something. Hold on. I actually have these posted. There we go. I forgot to do this. 29, Werewolf of London. 28, Mummy's Ghost. 27, here we go. All right. The Mummy's Curse, 1944. Lon Chaney Jr. once more plays the mummy. You get this musical scene, like instantly at the beginning, you get this musical moment in the bar. That's a bad start for me. I hate musicals. Absolutely hate them. Another huge time jump. All these movies in the Mummy franchise in particular, it seemed like they were all set like 25, 30 years in the future from the last one, but yet they all look like they were filmed the same year. They did nothing to make these movies look like they were the future. So it's like by the time you get to like, which was it? Like The Mummy's Ghost, which came out the same year. By the time you got to that movie, timeline wise, what year is it in that movie? It's probably today. It's probably 2023 by the time you get to that fucking movie, because every movie jumps like a few decades, but they do nothing to make it look like it's the future. And they never tell you what year it is. There's dialogue that just suggests that it's been so long. They retell the background of the mummy yet again for over 5 minutes. More single hand strangulations. Amina inexplicably resurrects herself, and at first is like catatonic, and then suddenly she's vocal. She has no memory of the last movie, conveniently, so typical like convenient amnesia. More women fainting, being kidnapped, and Amina is captured. She's turned back into the mummy. There's a decent fight scene. More betrayal, yet again. Literal backstabbing. The roof collapses on the mummy, and that's it. Quick, abrupt ending. These movies are all the fucking same. Creature Walks Among Us, number 26. This is the worst of the Creature films. Um, so yeah, in this one, we have a woman passes out scuba diving for going too deep into the water, but didn't go any deeper than the other two guys with her. So is that like a sexist thing? Like women can't handle the water more than men? Like, why did she pass out, but the other two guys didn't? And then, like, the way that scene played out, I remember I was so confused at first. I had no idea she was having this weird reaction. She was about to pass out. The way it played out, I thought she was like strip teasing. She was like taking off her gear, and the way it was all shot, like I thought she was just randomly like trying to like seduce the creature or something. I'm like, what is she doing? It was so funny to me. This movie is so bad. These movies are so terrible. The actor has super deep voice, and it doesn't seem like it would fit. Like, the voice does not match his face. Like, when you look at him and you hear his voice, you're like, that does not seem like the voice that would come out of that face. The Gale Man pours gasoline on himself in the middle of his attack on the small rowboat. Why? That made no sense. These guys are rowboating out there looking for this creature. It jumps onto the boat, grabs their can of gasoline, and is like, just pouring it all over himself. Why? It was like Jaws 2. I mean, that chick was, I guess, just gonna pour gasoline on herself and light herself on fire because she didn't want to be eaten alive. But what's the Gill Man's motivation here? Why was he pouring gasoline on himself? He mistook it as water or something. Oh, water! Pour it on me. I've been out of the water for 2 seconds. I need more water. It made no fucking sense. And then you got this sonar machine that's constantly beeping, going off. It's so annoying. There's a tracheotomy on the Gill Man, and they make the Gill Man like a land walker. He can breathe now. He's like a normal like mammal. He can breathe now. He doesn't need to be in the water, and that's why it's called The Creature Walks Among Us, I guess, right? So that's stupid. And then they make the creature wear human clothes. And he's like a bodybuilder. He's like a steroid gill man in this one. It looks so silly. Was the guy trying to rape her on the boat? She never even brings it up to the others afterwards, after the gill man like interrupted that. Like, what the fuck? Was that guy really trying to rape her? Like, her husband's on that boat. Like, did he think he was going to be able to like rape this woman on this boat with all these other people and her husband included and get away with it? But the fact that he was almost about to rape her doesn't seem to be a big deal. Sorry, hit the mic. Sorry. Doesn't seem to be a big deal to the woman. She's like, oh, whatever. She just quickly drops it. Uh, who who adults? What adult sleeps with the lights on? I wrote who, so typo. There's the Gill Man kills a mountain lion. Jealous husband kills a guy. Gillman sees this and he tries to make it look like the Gillman did it, but Gillman instantly rampages and kills the jealous husband, tears through the house. Why didn't he break out loose sooner? They make him seem like he's got Superman strength, so why was he in captivity for so long if he had that power within him the whole time? Finally, bloody bullet wounds visible. All right, so yeah, in all the other movies, when people get shot in these movies, you don't really see the bullets hit them. There's no blood packs, there's no blood. But in this one, there's actually like some blood on them when they get shot. It ends with the gill man returning to the ocean, but he'll drown unless he grows new gills. He just walks into the ocean, but he can't breathe in water no more. So he's just gonna kill himself? There's not much of a climactic finale. The first half is really boring. They set up that the chick is good with guns and hunting, which never pays off. I'm glad they didn't repeat the damsel in distress cliche like the previous two films. So that's 26. 20. Man, this is going to be a long video if I read all my notes for these movies. All right, 25. Dracula's Daughter. So boring. We get skeptical characters. Again, check. Dumb London police officers. Check. Last minute betrayal. Check. Woman kidnapped in the last act. Check. Van Helsing didn't know Dracula had a daughter, but yet he knows exactly how long she's been undead. Like he's now aware of this woman's existence. And he's like, she's been dead for 100 years. How the fuck do you have this information? Same actor plays Van Helsing. And I like that actor. I thought he was good, especially in the first Dracula movie. Why does she cover her mouth like a woman in the Middle East would? She's always covering her mouth with her clothing. So it makes you feel like you're in the Middle East, how they all dress. I forget what it's called. But why is she covering her mouth? Her mouth looks normal. She's not disfigured. So why is she covering her mouth like she's got fangs? She doesn't. She uses like a ring for hypnosis, and she gets killed by her servant with an arrow. Again, last second betrayal. She has a bug-eyed look that comes across as cheesy bad acting. And yeah, that's all I'll say about this one. Moving on, number 24, She-Wolf of London. This has really foggy scenes, very foggy atmosphere. A little boy dies off camera. There's a likable couple in it, but a predictable twist that's been done so many times since. This might be the first time, though. Exposition so forced, felt like a Scream movie. The killer's like, here's why I'm doing this. In case you need to know why before I kill you. It's so stupid. Just kill them. Killer accidentally falls down the stairs onto her own knife. I thought that was funny. Only an hour long. Some Dutch angles. And dogs not liking Phyllis was meant to trick the audience into thinking she's a real wolf. So this movie kind of fakes out the audience, but I was well aware of what they were doing here. I didn't buy it. It seems like they only had 2 locations for this movie. Number 23, Abbott and Costello meet the Invisible Man. So yeah, this is just so not funny at all. This is a comedy. It's a spoof on the Invisible Man. It calls Jack Griffin John again, like the Invisible Man 2. I don't get that at all. Why they couldn't fucking figure out what his name was in part 1. I swear to God, in part 1, and I even looked it up. I looked at the cast. Part 1, Invisible Man, his name is Jack. In every sequel since, his name is John. Like, I don't get it. Like, how could you fuck that up and then continue to fuck that up in every sequel? Another invisible guinea pig, like part 2, first movie with a boxer named Rocky. There's a boxer named Rocky in this, and I'm curious if Sylvester Stallone was influenced by this movie. He was like, that's a good name. I'm going to use that name when I make my movie. So we got another Rocky boxer in this. Costello keeps looking at the camera, making stupid noises and faces. That's like his gimmick. Feels like over 20 minutes is spent at a restaurant scene, and just I couldn't wait for that scene to end. Everyone is quick to violence in this. Ill-tempered people. The same joke of everyone who witnessed the Invisible Man ends up under hypnosis is done to death. No one believes anyone. More of that. Radio announcer looks at the camera. There's a lot breaking the fourth wall in this movie. Turns into a boxing film. The whole third act is the Invisible Man boxing. And that match was absurd. No one questioned what was happening. Like, clearly this guy's not throwing punches, but yet this guy's getting punched in the face by someone invisible, and no one's questioning that. What gave it away that the phony cop in the hall wasn't legitimate? That's a question I have. Anyone even know what I'm talking about there? Blood transfusion ending like part 2. So this movie seemed to borrow a lot from part 2 of the Invisible Man series. Lou, for whatever reason, has backward legs after the transfusion. Makes no sense. First thing Invisible Lou does is be a pervert and kiss a nurse. That's real classy, Lou. Real classy. So that makes you not like his character even more. So next movie is Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. And I know these movies are loved, so if anyone's still watching this and loves these movies, you're probably going to hate me for having these so low. These are, especially this one, this is the most liked of the Abbott and Costello monster movies, but I just did not think these movies were funny, especially these two, Invisible Man and Frankenstein. I thought they were just so unfunny. Abbott made me chuckle a couple times, just like I never laughed more than that. Okay, that's as much as I laughed watching these movies. Abbott made me chuckle a couple times, making fun of Costello's appearance. Yeah, it was a lot of jokes making fun of the way Costello looked. Like, have you looked at yourself in the mirror lately? And he's like, why would I want to hurt my own feelings? Something like that. And Costello was annoying. The jokes are really repetitive. Constant jokes about Costello being dumb and Abbott not believing him. Dracula now has a reflection, which angers me. That's bad continuity. And we see him turn into a bat on camera and back into human form. Frankenstein speaks for the first time to say master, and that's it. I don't think Frankenstein ever spoke before this or after. It's never explained how Talbot knows what he does about Dracula and Frankenstein. He just has all this information. Dracula is always covering his mouth with his cape for some reason. He never did in the first Dracula movie, but now this is his thing. He's got to cover his mouth. So yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Next movie, The Mummy's Tomb. Lon Chaney Jr. plays the mummy for the first time. Mummy looks slightly improved over the first Mummy movie. The first, or the other one before this, I think was The Mummy's Hand. So the first 10 minutes are flashbacks to part 2. 10 minutes of this 70-minute movie are a flashback. This is set 30 years later. Why? All the other movies are 30 years also after each other. Same actor comes back in old makeup. Surviving characters come back to die like a slasher sequel. 2 movies in a row where an old man drops dead after passing his duties to someone else. Super convenient that the antagonist goes to the same bar at the same time to eavesdrop on the protagonist. Again, kidnaps a fainting woman at the end. Lynch mob, like a Frankenstein movie. No ADR or Foley for struggle at the end, so that felt weird. It looked weird. Seeing 2 characters fight each other, but there's no sound effects, no sounds of a struggle at all, just nothing, silence. Killed by fire twice now. That's all I'll say about that movie. Moving on. This is going to be a long video. Number 20, The Ghost of Frankenstein. Igor, played by Lugosi, now alive. So he was in the previous movie. But in Ghost of Frankenstein, we got Igor back. But he's now alive. He died in the other movie. He's now alive despite being shot and killed. This movie's too short to be boring, but it's a really dumb script. Lon Chaney Jr. is now playing the Frankenstein monster. We got a new son of Frankenstein. Has major bags under his eyes. Village dynamites the castle like Halloween 5. I feel like after watching these movies, I realized how much Halloween 5 was inspired by these films. Your mother is the lightning is a line in this movie. That makes no sense. So because Frankenstein was struck by lightning and that's what made him come to life, that makes his mom, his biological mother, I guess, is lightning. I don't understand that at all. Monster has a court hearing. The monster has a court hearing in this. They let the little girl too close to him during the hearing for way too long. I don't believe that for a second. There's flashbacks to part 1. Frankenstein has knockout gas for every room in the hall. So that's just a plot convenience. It's like Laurie Strode in Halloween 2018. She's been preparing for this, right? But this Frankenstein, Victor in this, he has knockout gas vents in every room. So he knocks out all the townspeople. They're there to torch the place. So Ludwig says dissection is the only way to kill the Frankenstein monster. But they've tried nothing else. It's like, have you tried acid? Have you tried blowing him up? Have you tried just decapitating him? He ends up dying by fire in this movie. The same movie where they're like, the only way to kill this monster is if we chop him up into itty-bitty pieces the same way he was put together. We have to take him apart the same way. That's the only way you can kill him. But at the end of the movie, we're led to believe that fire killed him. It's like, you couldn't try that sooner or anything else. And he's died in many other different ways in every other sequel. Um, Igor thinks by putting his own brain in the monster, this will enable him to rule the state and maybe even the country. Yeah, because that makes sense. Little girl is too calm when she wakes up to the monster by her bed and doesn't make a peep when he carries her out. So I guess she's just real buddies with this monster. She's not scared of it like a normal child. Another angry torch wielding lynch mob. Why did they keep the little girl for 2 weeks? I could not believe it when they said 2 weeks had gone by between scenes. It took 2 weeks for this all to take place. And the monster now has Igor's voice. Yeah, because that makes sense. When you put your brain in someone else's body, you just get their voice. So monster goes blind, now has Igor's voice. Wait, no. Monster goes blind. See, I'm bad at reading. I'll like jump lines. I'm terrible at reading. I don't read books. Monster goes blind and burns alive, along with Ludwig and many knocked out villagers. And his daughter and her boyfriend, question mark? Is she the boyfriend? Is he the boyfriend? I don't know. They just walk off into the sunset, quite literally. They're walking off into the sunset, and she's not quite upset over what just happened. Bela Lugosi was the best actor in this movie. They smartly removed that god-awful fur coat that Frankenstein was wearing in the other movie. I don't know who made that costume design decision, which is the next movie, Son of Frankenstein. Longest runtime of the Universal Monster movies. This is like an hour and 40 some minutes. The monster's head is taller in this one, and now he wears a goofy sleeveless fur coat. Doesn't talk. Wolf reads note from dad out loud for his servant to hear. No one would do that. I just find that funny in movies. They do that sometimes where a character will be reading a note out loud, but it's like in real life, if you're reading something, would you read it out loud? Like, no, you just read it in your head. And so, actor playing Wolf is too theatrical. I don't like it, and I don't like his voice. He's a fast talker. The villagers hate Frankenstein family, but yet they named the whole like town after Frankenstein. So why would you do that? Like, man, I really hate the Frankenstein family and everything they've caused, all the trouble they've caused. Let's name the town Frankenstein. All in favor? Yeah, let's do that, even though we fucking hate them. And so the fact that the village doesn't try to hang him again is bizarre. Igor. Igor, played by Lugosi, is a man who has been hung to die because of his crimes. But he didn't die. He somehow survived his hanging. The whole town knows he survived the hanging, but they're like, okay, well, you get to live now, even though you were sentenced to death by hanging. Because you were able to survive your hanging, you get to just live now. Like, we're not going to try it again. Like, what? And so the Baron's son has odd southern accent. Interior sets look so empty and plain. There's like no set design at all. Just plain walls. Looks boring. Monster makes carriage run over a guy's chest. On screen, but it's a quick cutaway. Wolf and his wife sleep in separate beds. What? Is it because this is PG? Like, a man and his wife are sleeping in separate beds? It's not like they're angry at each other. They're not like about to get a divorce. They're a happy couple. And they sleep in separate beds. Very little of the monster is in this, but that's kind of true for all of them, really. You got a one-armed inspector who keeps having to adjust his fake arm, and it's really silly in a bad way. It's not funny. Igor uses monster to kill off the jury that hanged him. Only 2 of the 8 kills are shown. Wolf Tarzan, is that his name? Oh no, Wolf Tarzan swings at the monster and kills him in a sulfur pit. Yeah, I don't feel bad spoiling these movies. I'm just going to read all the spoilers. I doubt anyone, if you haven't seen these movies by now, you're never going to watch them. And saying how they die at the end is not much of a spoiler. Who gives a fuck? So yeah, he dies in the sulfur pit. Wolf should have been arrested for his illegal experiment, and those deaths are his fault, but instead, he and his family just hop on a train and wave goodbye to the villagers. Ugh, so stupid. Number 18, The Invisible Man Returns, starring Vincent Price, who sounds so different. if I watched this movie and didn't see that he was in this movie in the credits, I would never think for a second that this was Vincent Price. He does not look or sound like Vincent Price to me. The continuity error pissed me off. Jack, it's not John, it's Jack. Wrongly convicted man has to prove his innocence plot again. There's a lot of plots in these movies where someone's wrongly convicted and they have to prove their innocence. That's done more than once. Or Chief blows smoke in his face to see him, which was clever, but their fight oddly cuts midway. I don't. It just cuts away midway. Somehow made himself invisible in jail. I don't know how he managed to pull that off. You got invisible guinea pigs. A woman faints. Shocking. Oh, and then she fake faints. So that was different. She acts like she's fainting in one moment. Usually they're fainting for real in these movies. There's visible wires, and the effects don't hold up as well as the first Invisible Man. He steals clothes off a scarecrow. Not much memorable happens. Boring, lacks brutality of the first one. There's a line in this movie: I'll believe he's invisible when I see him. Different tone, barely any humor at all. The first one's very comedic. This one does not have anywhere near as much of that in this. Happy ending, blood transfusion is the cure. Number 17, House of Dracula. Same as House of Frankenstein, and this is a sequel, but it's essentially the same movie. Dracula and Talbot are alive again with no explanation. They died in House of Frankenstein, but here they are again. They're alive, and it's a sequel. It's not a redo. They're just back. Hunchback female assistant. That was the funniest hunchback in this whole series. Usually it's a man who has a hunchback, and then all of a sudden you got this cute nurse with a big old fake like pillow underneath her shirt. Another goddamn lynch mob. Talbot wants to die yet again. Dude, Talbot, the Wolfman in these movies, House of Dracula and House of Frankenstein, he's such a whiny bitch in these movies. He's just constantly like, I just want to die. Can someone help me die? I just need to find the cure to this so I can die. I just want to die. Please kill me. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Like, just, have you tried jumping off a cliff? Have you tried anything? We never see him try killing himself. It's always just, I just want to die. I can't kill myself. But we never see any attempts of him actually trying to kill himself. It was so annoying. It's like, will you shut up, you whiny bitch? And then the moon shines as bright as the sun in this movie. The monster is alive even less time than previously. And Dracula is killed midway. So that was surprising. I thought he was going to be a major character. It's called House of Dracula, and he's dead like about less than 30 minutes into this movie. It's like, bye-bye. He's not in the movie. It's about Frankenstein and the Wolfman. It's like, that was so weird. And the sunlight painlessly turns him into a skeleton, and none of that makes sense. It's like the sunlight not only kills him, melts his flesh, but it melts his clothing away too. Abrupt ending, as always. Lon Chaney has a pencil-thin mustache in this movie. And next movie is House of Frankenstein. A better title would have been House of Niemand, played by Karloff. Karloff, he plays a doctor, not the monster, so that's strange. Like, you got Frankenstein in this movie, but you have Karloff, who played him first. He's playing a mad scientist, he's not playing the monster? Like, that's weird. Glenn Strange plays the monster. John Carradine now plays Dracula. Also has the Wolfman character in it, played by Lon Chaney Jr. Super convenient prison breakout, like Mother Nature breaks them out of prison. Something falls through the roof, and the way the building looks when it collapses is like, was this place made of paper mache? Like, what the fuck? And every doctor needs a hunchback assistant. You got another one in this movie. Removing the stake from Dracula's skeleton resurrects him. So the thing that kills him is the thing that resurrects him too? That makes a little sense, but whatever. They quickly betray and kill Dracula after he helps them kill one person. So again, Dracula is in this movie for the first act only, and then he's just gone. Even in his own movie, House of Dracula, he's gone like midway. The couple in Act 1 are no longer seen. Like, when watching this movie for the first time, you would believe that this couple in the first 20 minutes are the couple you should get invested in, that you should, focus on, that they're going to be the main characters. But nope. As soon as Dracula's dead, they're just gone. Um, Makes it seem like the whole first act of Dracula was just filler just to have him. Yeah, it just feels like they were like, well, we got the rights, so let's just have Dracula in this movie. It's called House of Frankenstein, but let's have Dracula in it for about 15 minutes or so just to have him, just to pad the runtime out. Like, he did not need to be in this movie at all. Wolfman and monster are found frozen and resurrected once they're unthawed. That's movie logic. A line in this movie is, I hate you, you're mean, and you're ugly. That's what a woman says when a guy says something to her that she doesn't want to believe, and it upsets her. So that's what she says to him. I thought that was fucking hilarious. Meets young gypsy woman, instant love, of course. Monster doesn't do anything until the last 3 minutes, of course, and he kills the hunchback. So is that another example of betrayal? I don't get why he killed the hunchback. Wolfman got his wish with a silver bullet. He finally gets killed with a silver bullet. But why couldn't he just do that himself? Why couldn't he just get a silver bullet? If he knew how to kill himself all along, why didn't he just do it? And then he comes alive. Like I say, he comes back in House of Dracula. Even though he dies in this movie by a silver bullet, he's back in House of Dracula. Once again, bitch moaning and complaining, like, I need to die, someone kill me. Another damn lynch mob with torches. Yet again, monster walks with Karloff into the quicksand. The end pops up on the screen as soon as their heads go underneath the quicksand. Short movie, but still a little boring. Karloff's The Mummy, the original Mummy from 1932, is my number 15. This one actually has a film score, unlike some movies from 1931. And only in a few scenes. There's a little bit of a score to this movie, but not a lot. Van Helsing, actor, is now playing a different doctor character. Boris Karloff, who played the Frankenstein's monster, now plays the mummy, named Imhotep. And then the mummy he looks like a normal human being after the first act of the film. In the other mummy sequels, he's always just a mummy. And, wrapped up and everything. Guy laughs hysterically when he sees the mummy walk away, and then he dies laughing. He literally dies of laughter in a straitjacket. The movie flashes forward 10 years. You got some corny dialogue. You got Egyptian sets that were decent, authentic looking. So I'll give kudos to the set design in this movie for its time, the budget. He uses heart attack spells to kill people, and has a small pool in front of him that allows him to see wherever the scroll that he's looking for is. And it shows a woman a flashback. So he uses that same pool to show a woman a flashback, to give her exposition. And having the soul of his princess and woman's body isn't enough. He has to kill her and then resurrect her to be together. Why? Ending seems abrupt. Don't they all? Like Dracula, they walk in holding some relic to stop the ritual, and the mummy just rots away. There's a scene where a cat is hissing, but there's no hissing sound effect. The cat then kills a dog off camera. Question mark? So obviously I wasn't sure, but that's what I think was happening there. It's a little boring, too much like Dracula, with a woman character desperate to find the titular character because of some hypnotic spell. In a lot of ways, the movie just felt like it was borrowing some things from Dracula. It felt too similar. The Mummy's Hand. So this is my favorite Mummy movie. This is the highest rated Mummy movie. The Mummy's Hand, 1940, 8 years after the first movie. We get flashback narration. Very similar to the first movie, if not identical, but new person. We get magician characters, one a good magician, one comically bad at it. The characters are good. That's why I like this movie much more than the other Mummy movies, is that I thought the characters in this one were actually a little entertaining. You get a funny bar fight sequence. Adult woman kisses guy on cheek and shyly runs off like a little schoolgirl. I thought that was so funny. Like the way that scene played out, you would believe it if it was like 13-year-olds in love. But this is an adult woman. She like quickly pecks him on the cheek and then just runs away like a little girl. Like I just thought that was so silly. Someone was found murdered in their tent, and they still sleep another night in that tent. Not worried at all. Like what happened? Maybe there's a murderer, and maybe we should get the fuck out of here. No, let's just sleep here. Nothing to worry about. Another fainting woman carried away by a monster to its home. Mummy never looks human in this one. And the mummy in this one has weird, beady, black eyes. I wasn't a fan of the mummy's look in this one. This is before Lon Chaney Jr. played the mummy in the other 3 sequels. Son of Dracula. Lon Chaney Jr. is now playing the son of Dracula. But he's not in this movie a whole lot. And very active, dramatic orchestra score. Movie mostly focuses on the doctor and the Hungarian investigator and Kate. Kate has this elaborate plan to obtain immortality and never asked Frank if he would be on board with this idea. And how would she predict he would follow her there and would pull a gun out to shoot the son of Dracula? Like, in hindsight, when I thought back on this movie, I'm like, there's so much where you're like, okay, how does she plan this? How could she bank on this happening? But that's true for a lot of movies. You just gotta look past it. And also, she had to bank on that Dracula would bring her back to wherever. And how did Dracula not know of her ulterior motives for being with him? He seems to know a lot. He seems like a smart guy. I feel like he would know. And you witness transformation into bat on screen, now can appear as a cloud of white vapor. I think this is the only Dracula movie where Dracula can turn into like a white cloud. Kid gets bit but not killed, go figure. Black and white looks more like sepia tone in this. The black and white filter on this movie, it did not look like normal black and white. It almost looked like sepia tone or sepia tone. Dialogue, well written, acting solid. Poo-pooed is an expression that needs to make a comeback because it's funny to hear. When she said, like, he poo-pooed the idea, that I just started laughing. I love that expression, poo-pooed. Dracula is killed by sunlight, fades away into a skeleton. Dude burns vampire fiance in her sleep, who only wanted to be together forever. I guess he only wanted a temporary mortal marriage with her, so that was him saying, I don't. He breaks up with her by killing her. Like, she did all this to be with him forever. That was her whole point. Getting together with Dracula, the son of Dracula, was to find a way to be with her fiance forever. That was the whole fucking point. But then when he finds out that she did all this for that reason, she's like, well, I'm going to kill you now. Like, I don't want to be with you forever. No. So it's a dark, tragic ending. The movie moves slow and was mostly boring, to be honest, but a lot of these movies were boring. Even though they're so short, they're so boring. Next movie, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Reuses the same shot of the creature's hand multiple times. You got a plethora of wildlife sound effects in the movie. Kay is the hottest chick in the Universal Monster universe. So much of the movie is on this damn boat during the day on a small Amazon river. Only suspense scene is when the woman is going for a swim alone. Creature design is of the times, but not too bad looking. No movement with the eyes, though. That really took me out of it. That's so cheesy. Like, the eyes never blink or seem to move. And very loud, intense music every time the creature is on screen. There's one Jaws moment with the score. Boom, 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 boom. And so I wonder if John Williams watched this movie, and that's what inspired the soundtrack for Jaws. Man. This is over an hour long. Jesus Christ. They never actually get to study the creature. That was the whole point of being there. Creature barely touches Guy's face, and they bandage his... They bandage his entire head. He barely touched him. And they, like, make him look like the fucking mummy. It's like, there was no wound on his face. What did he do? The look he looked dry in one scene, even though he just left the water. The small fist fight between these two guys felt so unnecessary and silly. It's kind of like King Kong in a way when the dude, uh, when he kidnaps the girl back to his place. But then again, that happens in all these movies. So, when did King Kong come out? The first one, 1931 or something. Acting wasn't bad except when dude was getting killed towards the beginning. That was terrible. This was a little repetitive with the back and forth, in and out of the water. They just kept going back and forth. The cigar dude seemed like he was going to be like this fun character at first, but then he kind of just takes a back seat and you never really see him again. There's no bullet holes when shot, no blood when shot either, so clearly this is PG. Actually, it's less than that. This is the G movie. I think all these are G. All right, the original Frankenstein. This is a movie that a lot of people would have in their like top 5. I just was very meh with this one. Starts with a man in a tuxedo warning the audience, looking right at the audience, looking at the camera. He's warning the viewers of the film being scary. So beware. Karloff is not credited as the monster. He's credited as a question mark. It just says the monster played by question mark. It keeps saying He keeps saying, I created it with my own hands. But technically, if you think about it, that's bullshit. All right, Victor, you did not create the monster. All you did was take pre-existing parts from other corpses and stitch them together. You did not create this with your own hands. This is other shit that you're using. All right, so first 20 minutes has the classic gothic horror atmosphere, but it kind of goes away after that. Van Helsing, actor in this, from Dracula, he's in this one playing a different professor, doctor character. It's odd how the "it's alive" scene, when the monster moves its arm, ends so quickly. So yeah, I thought that scene would go on a little longer, but it just kind of flashes forward to some other day. So I just thought that was weird. How odd it was! Odd how quickly that scene ended. Continuity error. Kitty disappears from Maria's hands in between shots. The Baron was my favorite character. The only experiment done with the monster was Frankenstein telling him to sit down in a chair. Hunchback Fritz acts like a dick and he deserves to die. Some weird edits where the music would just kind of like abruptly between scenes. Monster kills little girl by throwing her in the lake. And how does the father know Maria was murdered and everyone in town seems to know that when they see him walk through the town with her body limp in his arms? It's like they're all quickly on board. Like, yep, little girl was murdered. Clearly that's what happened. They don't walk up and go, oh my God, what happened? Like, he's just walking in town with his dead girl in his hands. He's not saying anything. And everyone's like marching behind him like, yeah, justice. Someone murdered this little girl. No words are exchanged at all. And they all seem to just know instantly. Like, yep, little girl was murdered. We need to find who did this. It wasn't the father. Like, it was so dumb. The origins of the torch-carrying lynch mob trope. Is that where this all started? Because this was the first one, right? And this is what you get in every movie afterwards. The torch-wielding mob. Every movie. The fight choreography is a bit sloppy. Kind of looked like a dummy when Henry gets tossed off the windmill. It's an obvious dummy prop. Probably was. And monsters burned alive in the windmill. Much less audio hiss in this movie than Dracula. Dracula has a lot of audio, like hiss sounds to it. Kind of like some of my videos. Music over the end title card this time, but not the last time. So number 10, top 10. The Invisible Man's Revenge. All right, same actor from last movie is playing different character with Griffin last name. So he's like a relative or something, but he's the same actor, different characters. So that's a little confusing. John Carradine, obvious stunt double. And invisible dogs, invisible parrots. Herbert was the best character. Invisible man helps friend cheat at darts. So it's kind of a fun scene. First half is a bit boring. needs to drain all blood from a person to be visible for not even a full day. Yeah, so he need to become visible again. He needs to drain the blood from people. So he needs to murder people, take their blood, but it only makes him visible for like less than a day. So it's basically like he has to murder someone every day if he wants to be visible. Dog gets revenge for its dead owner and kills Griffin at the end. Um, Kind of reminds me of Phenomena, how the chimpanzee gets revenge for uh, Dr. Loomis at the end. So we got another dog getting revenge at the end. And why is it in all these movies the Invisible Man's voice sounds like it's all around you? Like he's always like, haha, you can't see me, so you have no idea where I am in this room. But it's like if you follow the voice, you'll be able to know where he's coming from. But in the movies, his voice is always, it's like an echo chamber. It's like no matter where you are, the Invisible Man sounds like he's all around you. You're like, oh my gosh, he could be anywhere. But it's like, dude, you should be able to follow his voice. It doesn't make any sense. The Invisible Agent, number 9, very relevant plot for the times. Turns invisible and strips mid parachute. That was funny. He's parachuting down into like a war zone, and as he's parachuting, he starts stripping all his clothes off. Starts serious, then slowly becomes more comedic. And this movie's obviously like a slant on Nazis. This movie's just to make fun of Nazis. It came out in 1942. This is right in the middle of World War II. It's a sign of the times. They had no idea the Japanese character was a Japanese person until they said he was towards the end. So, am I the only one? I felt so dumb when they were like, "Yeah, he's Japanese." I'm like, "Wait, that's a fucking Japanese person?" Invisible Man is the grandson of Jack, I guess. Puts cream on his face so that the woman can see him, and that somehow also makes his teeth visible. He didn't put cream on his teeth. His teeth should still be invisible, but you can see his mouth when he's got the cream on his cheeks and everything. Both the protagonist and antagonist make some really dumb decisions. Drowsiness is the side effect in this movie, not craziness. In The Invisible Man, the first one, the drug that makes you invisible makes you slowly become more of a madman. But in these movies, or like every movie after, like that's no longer the case. It's like either there's no side effects or it makes you sleepy. And in this movie, it makes you sleepy. So in the next movie, Abbott and Costello meet the mummy. This is my favorite of the Abbott films, obviously. This is the only one that I thought was actually kind of funny for once. There's lots of physical comedy right off the bat. Lou and Bud have character names, but they only refer to each other as their real ones, oddly enough. The first half is funnier than the second one. The movie stops dead more than once for like a dance sequence. And this one has a female villain for a change. That was nice. That was different. Number 7, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. This one had the worst transfer so far of my DVDs. Gives a good reason for how these two characters meet. It's never boring. It's a short run time. Could have used more Frankenstein. That could be said for all of them. Grave robbers not baffled by the fact that Larry still has his flesh intact after being dead for 4 years. He inexplicably just resurrects like Jason in the open of part 5. Removing Wolfbane caused it, maybe? I don't know. He just inexplicably he's like, I'm alive. I've been in the coffin for 4 years, but here I am. I'm alive now, and my flesh is all intact. Doesn't make any sense, but none of these movies really do. There's no logic. Great immediate atmosphere to the film. I like it. I like the look of the movie. Larry has fractured skull, presumably from like when his dad beat him with the cane at the end of the Wolfman, the first one. Coincidentally, there's a full moon the night they decide to rob this guy's grave. Bela Lugosi plays the monster. Poorly edited traveling montage. Still image when it zooms in. Yeah, so there's like a still image and they zoom in on it. There's some weird editing decisions here. Same gypsy woman returns for this one from the first Wolfman movie. Larry wants to die yet again. Oh my god, 3 movies in a row. He's just like, I want to die. Uh, yeah, so Larry wants to die but doesn't know how. But yet he killed a werewolf before. Like, you killed a werewolf in the first werewolf movie and you don't know how to die? Just take that fucking cane and beat yourself over the head with it. Something. Finds monster frozen alive in ice under burned down castle. So that's where Frankenstein's found in this movie. Lugosi started. It seems like Lugosi is the one that started the arms straight out trope when playing Frankenstein. That seems to be what Frankenstein's known for. He always has his arms out, but that wasn't really the case in the first Frankenstein movie. That seemed to be a thing now in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. So I feel like Lugosi kind of started that trope. No longer has Igor's voice. Musical moment at a festival. Ugh. Talbot snaps at the singer and says what I was thinking. Stop it! Baroness has a strange accent and deep voice that doesn't really match her face. Not much of a film score. Woman faints yet again. Doctor, at the drop of a hat, wants to see monster at full power and not kill him. And a fight between the two icons only lasts about like a minute. There's some crazy stunts though at the end. And villagers they blow up the dam, which is what kills the monsters in this movie, supposedly. Although in the next movie they're back alive, so I guess it didn't kill them. But yeah, abrupt ending. As soon as the dam crashes the castle, the water destroys the castle, the miniature. The end, like all of them. Number 6, Revenge of the Creature. This is my favorite of the 3 Creature from the Black Lagoon films. Cigar Man from the first movie, he returns. It's the same boat and same score as the last movie. Creature pulls bird underwater. I thought that was funny. Clint Eastwood has a brief cameo in this. He's not even credited, but as soon as I saw him, I recognized him. I was like, holy shit, is that Clint? Dynamite, he looks so young in this. It's 1955. Dynamite fishing method. They throw dynamite in the water, blow up the fish. That's how they catch the creature in this movie. It seems like Jaws 3D tore a page from this movie. Another attractive lead actress, but she's a terrible actor. Much prefer the aquarium setting. The Gill Man sounds like a mixture of a hog and a dinosaur. Gilman flips a car into the camera. Newspapers spinning towards the camera trope. That's in a lot of these movies, I feel like, where the newspapers start like swirling around and they go towards the camera and they pause for a second so you can read the headline. You don't see that in movies nowadays. Gilman eats a dog, and instead of protecting his date, Helen, dude just dives on the floor and hurts himself. Gilman throws a guy at a tree horizontally, and it looks hilarious. I remember that now. Yeah, so he throws him, and he doesn't like fly through the air naturally. It looks like he's on like some system that's like pulling him closer to the tree. You have to watch it. It looks so funny. Gilman shot by the police and dies, this time from bullets. I don't remember how he died the last time. Did he even die in the first movie? I don't think he did. I think he got shot in the first movie. Whatever. Same shot of... Oh yeah, it was like he didn't die in the first movie. He got shot and he just goes into the water, but he's still alive? I don't know. But he gets killed by bullets this time. Same shot. I believe they used the same shot from the first movie in this, where it shows all the bullets like whizzing by him underneath the water. Another ending where a woman is kidnapped by the Gillman and needs saving. Again and again. Same ending for all these movies. Top 5. Dracula. The original 1931 Dracula. Great sets and production value. Very atmospheric. I love the camera work in this one. Miniature ship and the water crashing onto the ship into the sailors. I thought that whole scene was impressive. Renfield looked creepy on the ship when he's just staring up at the camera. clearly mad out of his mind. Lugosi makes comical, sinister smiles in this. There's always a light that's shining on his eyes to like make them glow, and his line delivery is pretty slow. The audio hiss, it sounds like a waterfall. The audio hiss is the worst part of this movie. If you could somehow make it sound like a normal movie today without the audio hiss, this would be a lot better. No score outside of the opening credits. There's no music in the movie. Uh, Maid faints at the sight of Renfield laughing. So more women fainting. Shocking. Oh my gosh. When did that stop being a thing? When did women stop fainting in horror movies? It had to be like in the 80s, because I feel like they did it still in the 70s. Funny when Dracula slapped Mira out of Van Helsing's hands. He's like, I dislike mirrors. And he doesn't give a reason why. He's like, I dislike the mirrors. Van Helsing, actor played by Van Sloan, was good. Martin was a good comic relief character. Dracula sleeps fast in this movie. Within seconds of going in the coffin, he's fast asleep. Doesn't even wake up from loud noises right by the coffin. He gets a stake right through his heart off camera. And that's the end of the movie. It ends abruptly like all of them. As soon as they're dead, the movie's over. Number 4, The Wolf Man. Tremendous atmosphere, foggy woods. You like the look of the movie, solid acting. Although I thought Lon Chaney Jr., I was not a fan of his acting in this movie. I thought he was the weakest of them all. Anyone else? And I've heard other people say that he's great. He's great in everything. I just found him to be clearly the standout weak actor. You got the guy who plays the Invisible Man playing his dad in this movie, which I thought was odd because there's not that much of an age difference between them. So I thought that was a bit of a miscast there with the father. His character is a bit of a creep. Lon Chaney Talbot, I thought he was a bit of a creep. He keeps pushing himself onto this woman who says that she's engaged, and he peeps at her through like a telescope. And he openly admits this. Like, as soon as he meets her, one of the first things he says to her is like, go get your necklace I like you wearing, that she's not wearing currently. Like, go get your necklace or something that I saw you wearing through the window through my telescope. Like, it's no big deal. Like, she's not going to react to that negatively. Like, yeah, so what? I saw you through your window through a telescope, spying on you, and I just decided to immediately come over and tell you about it, and I want you to wear that necklace. I'm not a creep at all. Like, he was so creepy to me. But then, of course, by the end of the movie, they're going to be in love, despite how much of a fucking creep he is. The woman doesn't show any remorse for her dead friend Jenny. Bela Lugosi is technically the first werewolf in this one. He's the first werewolf that gets killed by Lon Chaney. Why would he be reading palms at night when there is a full moon? Lock yourself up. Why is Bela Lugosi's character in this movie? He knows he is a werewolf. He knows that there is a full moon that night. But yet, at like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, he is reading people's palms. And then he looks up at the full moon. He's like, oh shit, I gotta go. How do you not have this down? Like, you should have a system. And everyone, all the other gypsies know that he's a werewolf. Why aren't they reminding him, tapping him on the shoulder, like, hey, dumbass, quit reading palms, go lock yourself up before you go killing someone? It's so dumb. The dialogue I thought was well written, has a full score, unlike Dracula and Frankenstein, but this is 1941. This is 10 years later. We only see the legs transform into a wolf, and seeing a pentagram on the palm of the next victim's hand beforehand is something that's never really seen in future werewolf movies. Thankfully, I'm glad that's no longer a thing. In this movie, yeah, the werewolf sees pentagrams in the hands of people he's about to kill. They never do that in any other Wolfman movie since that I'm aware of. Not these that I've been talking about. Ending is tragic. Werewolf on 2 legs, wears clothing, silly. I much prefer no clothing on my werewolves. The fact that he's wearing human clothing just makes it look silly. Someone says in this movie, that's what she said, and that just made me laugh because, that's become a funny thing to say nowadays When did that start? That started like probably in the 90s, 2000s. When did That's What She Said become a thing? Take a note, Twiddle. That was a funny name for a character. Twiddle, Tweedledee, Tweedledum. Number 3 is The Invisible Woman from 1940. Instant humor and physical comedy that sets the tone, and I fully welcome it. The second Invisible Man movie with Vincent Price didn't really have the comedy that this one and the first one had. Most of the humor lands. Ironic that a model wishes to be invisible, and I want to murder her boss right away, and his name is Mr. Growly. Haha. uh, she literally did nothing wrong, and she has to apologize, and she does, and that angered me. He fires a girl for having the boss in this movie fires a girl for having a cold. She literally kicks his ass and makes sure that he knows who is doing it. That's the first thing she does when she becomes invisible, is she tracks down her boss and kicks the shit out of him, and then tells him, like, this is whatever her name is, so and so, I'm doing this. Like, why would you do that? I thought the whole point was to be able to kick your boss's ass and them not know it's you. Because you still, at the end of the day, you want to keep your job, you know? But she tells him anyway, like, Bertrice is kicking her. I don't know what her name was, but I thought that was really dumb. Like, that defeats the whole purpose. The villain has the bushiest eyebrows ever. A man faints in a movie called The Invisible Woman. It's not the women fainting this time around, it's the men that are fainting. And he faints 3 times in this. It's so obvious they trimmed some dialogue scenes down for pacing, because the scene will just end in mid-sentence. One of the thugs uses the machine to become invisible, but instead of becoming invisible, his voice turns like falsetto, very high-pitched. The subplot with the thug stealing the machine was the weakest aspect. I didn't really care for that stuff. The rich guy's servant was hilarious. I liked his character. It was funny seeing the Invisible Woman take a mallet to the heads of a dozen like henchmen, and just one hit. She was a one-hit wonder. Just bunk, 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 and they would all just fall down. Alcohol makes her stay invisible longer. She never turns maniacal like Jack Griffin did, only just developed an urge for alcohol. So like I said, in the first one, becoming invisible makes you maniacal. In this one, it makes you like an alcoholic almost. And then the other ones, you just get drowsy. So it's interesting how they kept changing that up in these films. The ending jumps forward in time to her having a baby. The Invisible Woman has a baby that turns invisible when he rubs rubbing alcohol on the back of the baby. The scientist acts so moronic for comedic purposes, and it makes you wonder how he was so smart enough to create such a device in the first place. This guy was smart enough to make this invisible machine that actually works, but yet his character in every scene, he acts like such a fucking moron. He's so gullible, he's so stupid, but yet he's a genius who created this device. Number 2, the Bride of Frankenstein, my favorite Frankenstein movie, 1935, opens with a recap, and Mary Shelley, who starts telling the story of part 2. So this whole movie is like a story being told by the author. Great atmosphere, much more of a score this time around. Really good cinematography and sets. Mini crossfade transitions, which, that's in all of them. Like I said, I watched these movies in order, so I wrote that note down, not realizing that was going to be true for all of them. Like all these movies after this, they all like to do that crossfade transition. Henry sounds like Doug Bradley to me. Anybody else? Actor in prologue rolls his R's a crazy amount. The Baron, Henry's dad, is not in this movie. I really liked him in the first Frankenstein movie. He's not in this one, unfortunately. This movie picks up right after part 1, which I always like when a sequel does that. Maria's father drowns also, ironically. So yeah, like father, like daughter, he drowns. His wife has comical death, being thrown down the pit. That made me laugh out loud seeing that. Over the top actress from The Invisible Man plays essentially the same type of character in this one, being very over the top yet again. Dr. Pretorius has shrunken people in jars. That's a what the fuck moment for me. If I could like take one scene out of this movie, I would take that one out. I didn't like that. That seemed very weird. Another kid dies in this one, off camera. It's hard to believe the mob managed to tie up the monster on a huge log. It's sort of funny how the blind man invites the monster in after he grunts angrily and didn't even knock. He just lets himself in at first. But the blind man's like, whoever that is who sounds like a monster and who just walked on in, yeah, come on in. This guy must be really lonely or very nice, very trusting of everybody. And Monster is now the one making Frankenstein sit down in a chair, which I liked as like a callback to the first movie. The bride hisses a couple of times, which is weird. Why does the monster throw Carl off the roof, and why does pulling the lever blow up the castle? I didn't understand that. The bride is barely in this movie, but that's probably a good thing. It probably would have been too corny if she was in the movie a lot. And it's kind of funny how quickly the monster gives up on her, on the bride after like two rejections. Like every time he gets close to her, she just kind of screams at him, and then he's like, "Fuck it, like it's not gonna work." And Pretorius calls her the bride of Frankenstein, but Henry already has a wife, so isn't she technically the monster of? She's the bride of the monster. She's not the bride of Frankenstein. She's the bride of Frankenstein's monster, technically. All right, amazing pace. It's never dull. One of the quickest paced movies of this whole universe of films. And so number one is The Invisible Man. This was my favorite. Super British humor, very funny, fast paced for an old film. This came out in 1933. And I loved the Invisible Man's laugh in this and his voice. I think his name's Claude Rains, who was the dad of the Wolfman and the Wolfman. The visual effects and the wire work for the Invisible Man stuff that was pretty impressive. It was very convincing. You could not really see the wires. Jack acts so smart, but moronically trusts his pal, won't call the cops when he sleeps. I thought that was dumb. The bar waitress was so over the top. She's the one from Bride of Frankenstein. The bar waitress. She's so over the top and a little annoying with her screaming. They answer some questions I had, like how does food and water not be seen in his belly? And so yeah, they answer some of those questions. They missed an opportunity for a joke when he's pissing or shitting. And how did the doctor know he was shot in both lungs when they're not even visible? At the end of the movie, when he's shot, the blood's invisible, the bullet holes are invisible, but he's performing surgery on an invisible body to take the bullets out. How do you even know where the bullets are? The bullets are invisible too. You can't even see them once they're inside the body. Maybe they were visible, but we don't see that. The dialogue at times is pretty corny. There's a great montage of the Invisible Man tormenting the village, just robbing a bank, throwing cash everywhere, picking up a bike, throwing it, and taking people's hats off their heads and just fucking with them. And I love that he tells this guy when he's gonna kill him, and he could have killed him right then and there, but he's like, I'm gonna murder you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So that makes that guy's next 24 hours of life that much more miserable. Because could you imagine knowing the exact hour you're gonna die? That would fuck with you so much. So I love that he did that to this guy. Why did the Invisible Man ramble on about how he became invisible to the people in his room as if they asked or were even paying attention to what he was saying? They were too freaked out to even listen to him. I'm talking about the scene early on in the movie when they first barged into his hotel room. And he just starts ranting like, I did this to become invisible, and he's taking off his clothes, but they're all freaking out. They're not listening to a single word he's saying. So he's just spouting all this exposition about how he came to become invisible. They're not listening to a single word. Everything he's saying is just for us, the audience. So yeah, it was just a forced explanation. The love interest character felt unnecessary, but other than that, really like the movie. It's my favorite. What's your favorite? Holy shit, this is the longest video I've ever done, but that doesn't shock me. I'm talking about 29 movies and then 3 other movies earlier and a quiz. It's gonna be a long video. I should have expected that, but yeah, holy shit, an hour and a half. I talked longer than pretty much every single one of these movies I talked about. So yeah, what is your ranking of the Universal monster movies? If you have one, what's your favorite of the monsters? The Invisible Man, that's my favorite. So yeah, just let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in episode 30, whatever that's going to be about. I have no idea yet. So I'll see you then.